I was an Air Force veteran, and while I was in the military, I got really into backyard barbecue. I think something happens when you become an adult as a guy. You have to get either really into World War II history or really into smoking meat. And I was already in the Air Force, so I was like, I'm not gonna double down here. I'm just gonna get a new hobby. And so that's what I did. I ended up starting a little barbecue restaurant, and probably like a lot of you guys, very similar story. I found something that I was very passionate in and didn't know anything about any of it, and just had to find a way to make money doing it. So when my contract with the Air Force ended and I moved back to Lexington, Kentucky, my mom and dad, my dad is also an Air Force veteran, 25 years, and we needed a way to get this business launched. And so for $5,000 and that tent came from Sam's Club back in the day, and like a $3,000 or $4,000 smoker, we were all of a sudden in business. And something interesting happens, as you all know, when you launch a business. You think you're getting into the business to do the thing. You know, I was just talking to Deloy a minute ago, and he's a pharmacist, and you're very good at pharmacy, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I also have to do sales, and I have to do marketing, and I have to do HR, and I have to do finances, and I have to also compete with all these other people who are doing the same thing. And that's why I'm so glad that Dan was first this morning, because he really laid a lot of the groundwork for what we're going to talk about for marketing too. But you are the CEO, you're the chief everything officer, right? You are doing everything. And that was me. I mean, we were competing with McDonald's and Chick-fil-A and a lot of other really great local barbecue places in Lexington, just an hour south of here. We finally got out of the tent on the side of the road, and we matured as a business. We got lucky. We found a place. And this location, is anybody in the restaurant business, by the way? The coffee shop analogy earlier was great. I felt all of that pain from that story. The restaurant business is really dependent on location. And I had no idea about that being a thing. And so I picked a restaurant location that was connected to a gas station, next to a liquor store, next to an hourly hotel. So we hit the trifecta as far as I'm concerned. But very quickly, I had to get good at marketing, and I was very bad at marketing. My job in the Air Force was negotiations. I was helping small business owners do business with the government. They came to us. And if you ever get to negotiate on behalf of the government, it's very fun, because you have all the money and you just write the checks, and they all want to come to you. There's no selling, you know what I mean? It's like, what's your price? Da-da-da. I lost all that leverage because, they respect the government, not my little logo. So with this brick and mortar store, we had to figure out how to drive traffic. So I went to the traditional channels, right? Print has been around for hundreds of years as a way to market your business. Billboards, that could be a big official billboard. That could be something small in a town square. Like, those have been around forever. Direct mail, radio's been around about 100 years. TV's been around. And so I was like, there's only a few options. Let's try something. And if you ever own a brick and mortar business, if you see those signs that say no soliciting, they don't work. People will come in and solicit. And let me tell you, if you do sell to restaurant owners, please don't come in during the week, during the lunch rush, and try to sell to them, because it's annoying and we'll never buy from you. But there was a billboard salesperson that came in, and she convinced me to buy a billboard. And this is like year 2 in business. And again, you got to understand, I have no background in marketing. I've probably read 3 books on this subject. I've been doing it for maybe a year and a half at this point. And so when she comes in and she's like, hey, you're on this busy road. There's 100,000 eyeballs that come up and down this road every single day. If you only get a percentage of them to come here, you'll buy a Ferrari. And I was like, that sounds great. I'd love to be a barbecue guy with a Ferrari. Those things match from a branding standpoint. And so she sold it to me. She was very good. I should have taken notes on her sales process, because I feel like that would have been more helpful than the billboard ended up being. For $2,500, we bought a digital billboard that was a mile down the road from our restaurant. Now, to set the stage, this was a restaurant that was outside of town. It was in between 2 cities where people would commute. And it was one of those roads, if anybody here is from Texas, you know how the posted speed limit may be 70, but the real speed limit is 100. And that's that road in Kentucky. And we were at a little stoplight that people really thought is optional, and they just would blow by us all day long. And so I thought, if I could just get this attention, I could get them to come in. Maybe they'll ignore the shady things around us. You kind of want your barbecue place to be in a little bit of a shady area. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's right. Yeah, you would think that, but most people don't understand. So she got me. I spent $2,500, and I was like, this is awesome. Like I can't scared money don't make money. I'm in it. Like I see all the other big brands. Chick-fil-A's got billboards everywhere. Those dumb cows doing gymnastics on the things. Like I can do that too. And we did it. And for a whole month, for $2,500, the billboard ran. And I worked the register because we didn't have money to pay a lot of staff every day. Raise a hand if you're the one working in your business every day. 40-hour work weeks is a luxury that you haven't seen since you got the harebrained idea to launch a company, right? So I worked the register every single day. And I had started to realize with marketing, like you need to be able to track where leads are coming from. Like we got to start seeing some data to like see where things are coming from. And so I had the brilliant idea. I'm like, I'm just going to ask people, if this is your first time, how'd you hear about us? And so I started asking people, how'd you hear about us? Oh, so-and-so told me. Oh, so-and-so brought me. So referrals, word of mouth, that's great. Kind of like Dan was talking about earlier. That means you have product market fit. People are enjoying what you do. They're spreading the message for you. Then I'd ask more people, how'd you hear about us? How'd you hear about us? Oh, I saw it on Facebook. This was 2014, 2015, so organic reach on social media was still a big thing. And we got a ton of it. And people would say, oh, I saw it on Facebook. If you had to guess how many people saw the billboard and that was the reason they came in, for $2,500, how many people should have come in, do you think? Just shout out some numbers. 500 would have been, I wouldn't be here. I'd be in a Ferrari on Barbecue Mountain. 2% would have been great. No. 25? No. Ma'am, you are very optimistic, and you should sell billboards. It was a monthly fee of $2,500, and I'm not a big math guy, but I can do this math. We had 3 customers say, I saw the billboard. Barbecue is expensive. Protein-heavy plate, it is a high ticket. $20. 3 times is $60. Into $2,500 does not cash flow well. And then I realized, after doing some research with the SBA, that the number one reason that small businesses close in America is because of cash flow issues, which is exactly what we all feel in the room, including me today, the pressure of, because we don't get to lose money for 20 years like some of these big SaaS-backed ventures. Like we have to be profitable today, or like our vendors aren't going to work with us, right? Like we have to find a way to make it work. And how do you do it with marketing? Because back in the day, there was 5 options and 3 TV channels, and now there's infinite options. And like technically TikTok is still up there, but like who knows if that's going to be a thing in a month? It almost died, now it's still here. It's crazy. There's too many options. And what I ended up figuring out after I went on this 6-year journey with the restaurant, grew it, did a lot of really great things, wasn't quite ready to be the entrepreneur I needed to be to keep growing that company, hadn't learned a few lessons, which I'm happy to share some other time. It's not necessarily a marketing point. But the business closed, and then I got to reflect on why it closed and what happened. And some of the things that we struggled with on the marketing front was we did what we call random acts of marketing. Somebody came in and sold me a billboard, somebody came in and sold me a radio ad, somebody came in and sold me a TV ad, somebody came in and sold me the back of a receipt at Kroger, because I thought that might be a good idea. I was trying everything. And marketing by spaghetti cooking doesn't work, right? Where you basically take noodles, chuck them up against the wall, and see what sticks. Like, that's not going to work. The people it does work for are definitely the exceptions and not the rule. And so I had to figure out, like, how do we actually get a plan? And so I got really obsessed with this whole thing. And 3 years ago, me and my co-founders here, we ended up launching High Beam Marketing. And now, over the last decade, we've worked with hundreds of brands. We've managed over $200 million in ad spend. The majority of our clients are between $1 and $10 million in revenue. So a lot of them are just the next phase from what you guys are. And so what the advice I'm giving you is just the roadmap ahead. It's just the journey you guys haven't gone on quite yet. Some may have, but you're really close to it, and you're just a plan away. That's the big issue here. So the wonderful woman on the left there is my mother. We branded her as Mama Lyles, and my mom was really the heart and soul of that restaurant. She was from South Georgia originally. She grew up cooking farm to table before it was cool, and she was the artist, and I really took on the business side of things. Like, that was our team dynamic in the restaurant every day. And she came to me one day just very frustrated with sales numbers or something, and we started talking, and her whole pain point there was, I don't understand why we're not doing better. I don't understand why more people aren't coming in. I have great products and services, which is what we all say, right? I bet if I asked everybody in this room right now, you'd be like, We're the best. We do a great job. And you're right. But it doesn't matter. The best products do not win. Ever. It's the best known products that win. And that is the function of marketing, is to become the best known product or service in your space. A lot of what Dan was talking about earlier about like when I have this problem, I think about you. And so like have that be the guide as we go through the rest of this thing. Like the North Star is like what is the thing you want to be known for solving? And it makes a lot of sense too when you start thinking about it from an association. Science backs it up. The mere exposure effect says that the psychological phenomenon describes how people tend to prefer things they're actually familiar with. You guys all know the Pepsi challenge from back in the day, right? Where blind taste test, Pepsi won. You know, I'm from Georgia originally. Coke is my jam. Like there's Diet Coke in this drink can right now. Pepsi won. It was the better tasting product to over 50% of people. Well, 30 years after that, the psychologist comes along and he runs the experiment again. And they mirror the results. When they do a blind taste test, Pepsi wins. When they all of a sudden tell people which brand they're trying, Coke gets 75% of the vote. Tell me branding and marketing doesn't work. So, how do we become the preferred choice? You know, it's $1 million question. And today I'm hoping to give you a plan and a strategy that'll actually help us get there. So we got to start with strategy, right? Just like in the military days, like we got to know sort of like, what are we doing here? Like we can't just have like planning for the sake of planning, like running a bunch of Facebook ads today without a strategy that's cohesive is sort of pointless, right? Hitting that blue boost button, which Mark Zuckerberg really wants you to do because he just wants to buy another yacht. I hate that guy for a lot of reasons, and I'm spending a lot of money with him. It's a very love-hate thing. But we need a strategy. And so the strategy for me for marketing, I try to simplify things. I'm not real smart. I try to get it down to as dumb a level as possible. And so I made it a math equation. The more attention you have, multiplied by the more emotion you cause people to feel, equates to the amount of influence you have as a company. So let's start with the emotional piece of this equation, because I think attention is the thing we all go to first. Buy the billboard, run the Facebook ad, build a new website. But that's the wrong way to do it. You got to start with emotion. This guy right here, Antonio Damasio, is a psychologist, and he had a guy come into his clinic one day who had severe brain damage. Talk about the importance of emotions. This guy's brain, the way it was injured, caused him to not feel any emotion. His IQ was the same. His cognitive abilities were the same. He was talking the same. Everything, you wouldn't know that anything was wrong with the guy from just looking at him. But over the course of a couple of years after the injury, he lost his job, he lost his family, his life fell apart, and then weirdly, he became like a hoarder. He couldn't get rid of stuff. And what was happening was that because he couldn't feel emotion, he couldn't make decisions. And what Antonio ends up calling it is the somatic marker theory, where basically it's like without emotions as a shortcut in your brain to help you make a decision, you won't make them. We as humans have evolved to like need the emotional shortcut to be able to filter out all the information going on in our environment. You and your customers, by the way, make 35,000 decisions every single day. You are aware of 70 of them. I live 8 minutes from this building. I drive the same route out of my neighborhood every day to go to the gym, and I was late this morning because guess where I went? The gym. I was on autopilot. And your customers are running through life on autopilot. Our job as entrepreneurs and chief everything officers, you are the marketers, right? Because I know that a lot of people, you're going to have to figure out how to do this on your own. And that's what we're going to do today. But your job is to stop them. Great marketing wakes people up with an emotional experience. Just running an ad of your product with a feature without the emotion behind it, it might as well not exist. It's just white noise in the background. But as soon as an emotion happens, I start paying attention. I definitely recommend, I'll send slides out too so you guys can have this, but like the 6 core emotions here are fear, disgust, sadness, anger, happy, surprise. You don't have to do just one when you're running ads and you're making ad campaigns and writing copy and doing all the things. Multiple is better, but be careful which one you trigger because, you know, if you make somebody angry and they're angry at you instead of the problem, right, it's dangerous. So emotions are it's a two-edged sword. You got to be careful. A couple of really famous examples of emotional marketing. This is Apple's famous 1984 ad where all the big government, ironic, is running through the world, and this woman throws a sledgehammer through glass. Anger, righteous rage, all that. Joy, Old Spice commercial guy, makes you laugh. It's memorable. This moved a ton of Old Spice product. Completely dead brand for P&G, local Cincinnati company. Dead until they added this dude on a horseback doing weird things, and we laughed at it, and all of a sudden it became a jester brand. Now we're making fun. Surprise brands. Have you guys ever seen the Dollar Shave Club ad, the original one from way back in the day? Essentially, completely reinvented what internet marketing could be from a storytelling standpoint. It's just a lot of weird stuff like this just popping out all the time. Tons of surprise, tons of delight, a lot of laughs, but an emotion. And that helped. By the way, this ad sold like $1 million worth of product in 3 days, and they shot it with like an iPhone back in the day, and like one shot. It was done for thousands of dollars, not hundreds of thousands of dollars. Sadness. I don't know how many times I've been woken up at 2 a.m. by this lady singing "In the Arms of..." I'm not going to sing. But it's sad, and all of a sudden you're like, yes, please, $1 a day will save 1 million puppies' lives. Take my money. I felt sad. I don't need this dollar. Please, you have it. And then another dog commercial, the farmer's dog. I saw this one this year when the first football game kicked off. The Eagles were playing somebody down in Mexico. But this is a loving commercial because this ref, basically in this game, blows a call. All the audience is just yelling at him. The fans are just tearing him up. And you're feeling bad for the guy, but you're also like, you kind of deserve it because refs suck, right? How many calls are the Chiefs going to get this weekend? You know what I mean? But the commercial ends, he walks back home and his dog is there. And the dog doesn't care. The dog loves him. And then you feel that emotion and you're like, oh, if I loved my dog, I would buy him farmer's dog food and not Kirkland brand 50-pound bags like I do. And finally, fear, the famous your brain on drugs ad. I don't know what drug that was, but maybe we tried. I don't know. It's mismatched marketing, right? But it's fear. It's like, do this, be afraid. Tension times emotion equals influence. Remember that forever. As you're making decisions in your business to do stuff for marketing or not to do stuff with marketing, go back to this time and time again. Am I triggering an emotion? Because if I just get your attention and I've not triggered an emotion, white noise. And worse, it's forgettable, right? Do you have a question?
Yeah, when you started, you talked about being an Air Force buyer, just spending the government's money. Does this apply to you? I mean, I understand it's on business to consumer marketing, but what about business to business or business to government? How would you address this formula attached to that?
Yeah, so the business to government thing, I think we can talk about offline. That's a fairly niche, it's a huge market, but it's a fairly niche problem. B2C, B2B, the biggest difference between the two is buying cycles, in my opinion. I've run a B2C business with a barbecue restaurant. You get hungry 3 times a day. I'm open for 2 of those times. I've got a really short sales cycle to try to get you to come in and try something new. Now that I run a B2B marketing agency, you guys are all business owners. You are all either in my ideal customer profile, like you guys were working on earlier, like who do you want to target, or you're not. And some of you guys are going to be in the market and some of you aren't. And so the buying cycle is much longer. But the core strategies and tactics don't change. The timeline and expectations of return will change. Does that make sense from the difference there? And we'll get into some more of that here in just a little bit as well, but that's a really good question. So, the almighty dollar, how do we get more attention without getting cash? We've got a strategy, we got the formula, we're focusing on emotion. Ask yourself with these ads, does it cause an emotion? If not, you've wasted your money, go back to the drawing board, start over. But we need a plan. We need a plan that helps us meet our customers where they are. And by the way, if you remember that slide from earlier, there's 50 million, bajillion, trillion options for meeting customers today. Technically, this is marketing. I'm up here talking to you all, and at some point in the next decade, maybe you'll work with me, maybe not. This is marketing. TikTok didn't exist 4 years ago. And now, people spend an average of 2 hours a day on the platform. And you want to laugh at it, but at the same time, you're like, well, how much TV did we watch in the 90s? Attention is the game you're in, right? Influence, back to the formula. Influence, attention times emotion is influence. Somebody on TV, good commercial. Super Bowl commercials are coming up, right? They used to be great. Now they're all terrible. I don't know what happened. We lost the emotionalness of them. Okay, so we need a plan to meet customers where they are. And this is the product of years and years of work, millions and millions of dollars, tons and tons of case studies. This will get you 80% of the way there. I'm a big believer in the Pareto principle, 20% of the work gets you 80% of the way there. There are other things you can do. Every business is unique. I am not a marketing cult leader. You do not have to follow this like it's the Bible. Please don't. Apply it uniquely to your business. But across the board, across most consumers, this is what will help you get in front of the right people at the right time. I've seen it. I've tested it again and again and again. There are always exceptions to the rule. You are probably the exception. I'm very excited to hear about your exception story after my talk today. So let's start with the first part of this here, which is positioning. And you guys, we talked a lot about this in the first one, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but I break this down into three main buckets. What's your purpose as a brand, which you guys spend a lot of time doing the breakout sessions on. Who is your ICP? Who are we aiming at? Ideal customer profile. And then what is your actual branding, which is something we didn't talk about on earlier, so I will spend some time there because it's important. So, what is, yes?
I got just a random.
No, you're fine.
Is there a such thing as overstimulating potential customers with marketing and branding? Like, is there a way that, because it's good to market and brand your business and your company, but what is a good space to say, okay, I've done enough so I don't overdo it?
So the question was, can you overdo it? Can you market to your people too much? None of you are marketing to your people too much. And let me tell you why. This is back to my mom's and I's conversation early on, right? Every day of her life, 12, 13, 14 hours a day, she was thinking, how do I make the best barbecue in the world? We made bread from scratch. Have you ever made bread from scratch? Do you know how big a pain in the butt it is to bake bread from scratch when they sell potato buns for like $4 a bag? But here I was rolling out dough for hours at a time. You're so close to your business, you think about it all the time. I don't think about any of your businesses outside of the days before this presentation where I was doing some research, looking at websites, all that stuff. But even then, I was only looking at it so that I could be better prepared for my own reasons for being here. And that's all of your customers. That's not bad. That's just how we are as people. Back to the slide with I'm making 35,000 decisions a day. 70 of them I'm conscious of. We would be lucky to be annoying. You know what I mean? I would love to have the brand awareness that McDonald's has and Target and all these other massive Nike up here as well. If you get to the point where people are in the hundreds, I would say, not one off every once in a while, I saw your ad too much. If there are hundreds of them saying it's bothering me, maybe it's time to adjust. But you have way more bandwidth there than you think you do because you're so close to it that you think it's too much and you're kind of like, I need a break from this. I need to do something else. My best ad that I ever ran, a little side note here, was me standing in front of a white wall, just like this, in a Lyles Barbecue Company sweatshirt. And I literally said the name of the company for 30 seconds straight. Lyles Barbecue, Lyles Barbecue, Lyles Barbecue, Lyles Barbecue. For 30 seconds straight. And now over that, we placed text that sort of was making fun of me for doing that as an advertising thing. But people's reaction to me saying the brand of the company for 30 seconds straight, which if I did that up here, somebody would come kill me. And you should, because it's annoying in this environment. But on the internet, it was a funny joke and it was interesting. And the comments on that thing were massive. But I triggered an emotion, which was joy. Some people were very angry, but it was a very small. And they weren't really my ideal customer. And we'll talk about that too as a minute, how you should frame your focus on that. So, did that answer your question? Okay, great. So, positioning. So what is your brand's purpose? This guy's name is Yvon Chouinard. Yvon was on the West Coast, really big into rock climbing in the 60s and 70s, and he realized a problem, just like all of us do as entrepreneurs. He's going up the mountains. These guys are hammering in spikes into the rock face. I'm not a mountain climber. I'm borrowing valor here. I don't know about this problem, but he explained it. And so he set out to create climbing gear that wouldn't damage the rock face so that future climbers, well after his time, could enjoy the rock, just like he had. And you might have heard of his company, because in the 70s they rebranded when he saw that there was more environmental impact that was bothering him. It's Patagonia. And Patagonia knows why they exist. They exist to make the world a healthier place from a scientific perspective. You know, they do 1% back for every sale to a eco relief fund. You can take any damaged Patagonia clothing into a store and they will help you get it repaired. In fact, they ran this ad, which I love, and the tagline was, "Don't buy this jacket." Raise a hand if you would like to be able to say in your business, "Don't buy my stuff, I don't need it." None of us, including me, are that committed to our mission yet. But like this is sort of an altruistic goal that like once we have millions of dollars and billions of dollars in sales, like we can get to. But they are an example of a brand that is very in tune with who they are. Now it's kind of interesting because they've become so popular and because they are an expensive product, because it's so long lasting, that it's sort of a joke now that Patagonia is worn by Wall Street bankers and like, you know, finance people, right? And so it'll be interesting to see how they do that. But Yvonne, he has even, his entire net worth will be donated to environmental charities upon his passing. And so he is very in line with what he's doing as a company.
Chandler,
Yep.
that's a hypnosis technique.
What's that?
Don't buy this jacket because your mind doesn't hear the don't.
Yeah.
Oh, that's actually kind of sly the way you did that.
Yeah, the copywriting term for it is it's just reverse psychology, right? If I'm a child on the inside. If you told me not to do jumping jacks right now, I would do jumping jacks just to be that guy. And so there is some of that. Don't like, again, we are all in the business of profit. And your job as an entrepreneur, like we were just talking about in the first session, is to balance that. How much profit's too much profit? That is a cigar conversation that we should have because I love to get weirdly philosophical. But I agree. So the science still backs this up. It's a great story for Patagonia, but like, does this actually apply to your brand? Social identity theory, it's basically like how we are as tribal people. Like we are going to associate with people in a room, veterans, different branches, right? But still, veterans that are entrepreneurs. All of a sudden, we're all here. If any of you ask me for help today, like I charge $5,000 for marketing plans, and you guys can get the same information today while we're talking because we're in the same tribe and I care and I want to give back to people that are like me. They tested this. They had a guy in a white t-shirt walk across a like grassy knoll and fall and hurt himself, fake, and see how many people helped him. And then, this was in England, they had a Manchester U t-shirt, which is a soccer club there. Same guy, or a different guy, but he walked across the same area and saw how many people would help him up. Like, we see somebody fall, like maybe this is different for military people, maybe it's a different vibe just because of our backgrounds. But like, do you think it'd be close? Like, maybe it's 55-65. Obviously, I'm leading the witness, like the Man U guy's gonna get more, but it's way more than you think it is.
92%.
Almost 100% helped. I mean, your brand needs to stand for something if you want people to rally to your cause. Otherwise, again, you don't exist. I don't know why you exist. So High Beam Marketing, our rallying cry, the reason why I'm here speaking today and I'll be here tomorrow, is because I want to put corporate America out of business. And I think the only way we can do that is get small business owners growing. 50% of small businesses close in the first 5 years. That is unacceptable. I lost my first business in 6 years because I was a doofus. And so now I'm doing what I can, making a profit, because I'm an evil capitalist too. But I'm trying to put those people out. So if you're interested in this, be friends with me. And if you're not, and you love corporate America, like, okay, cool. We can be friends, but like, we're not on the same mission.
Most small businesses are corporations, though. That's a problem.
Yeah, maybe I need to workshop the actual like technical words there. But the reason why I can get on this soapbox, well, the reason why, and I can get on the soapbox, is because I think it should be illegal for you to lay off tens of thousands of people and then get a massive payout. I don't think that's okay or good for the community at large. So, who is your ideal client? Barbecue restaurant story again. I had the bright idea, like I think we all do as entrepreneurs, like I'm gonna sell salads. People are asking me for salads. I think it's a lot more than it is. Maybe one person asks a week, and all of a sudden my mind says, we don't have salads, we're losing business, I'm gonna close. So we launch salads. I buy a new fridge for it. I buy all the new ingredients for it. My mom obsesses with making everything from scratch, so now I'm making pickled onions from scratch. I'm making croutons from scratch. Yes. Ranch dressing was made from scratch. Vinaigrette was made from scratch. All of it. Huge operational lift for us to get these salads going. Ran them for like 6 months. And I just weirdly was like, I feel like we're throwing a lot of lettuce away. And cost of goods, food costs, huge deal in a 10% margin business. So I ran the numbers. I looked at the data. We sold 30 salads in 30 days. And this was in January, when you're supposed to be doing better. And it taught me a valuable lesson. You gotta know your customer. You gotta actually know why they're coming. And this is why. This is called the law of diffusion, and this is a standard deviation graph across all population types. You have your innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, laggards. Every one of us, when we first start in marketing, want to focus on the early majority and the late majority. And it makes sense from the outside when you're first thinking about it. You're like, that's where all the people are. That's where I'm gonna go. And so what you end up doing is you like shave your message a little here, you tweak a little bit of this here, it gets a little bit bland here, kind of like what you guys were talking about in that first session, where it was like you weren't being direct enough to a specific audience. We go here, because we want to, cash flow is the underlying fear, and it's driving you to make a lot of your decisions, because I'm the same way, I get it. But really where you want to focus is this early adopter. Who are the people that you can make something for? You have these people in your customer base right now as long as you're selling stuff. They love what you do. They are obsessed with it. That person, especially for the scale of a lot of us here in the room today, should be your best friend. Like you should know everything you can about them. And then make stuff and talk to them. Because what they are going to go do, what's that?
I'm just saying they're going to go and talk.
That's right, yeah. They take your message up here. Target, with billions of dollars in ad spend, plus every other massive company in the country, is marketing to these people. They're marketing to all of them. Coca-Cola, as much as I love Coca-Cola, like they're marketing to laggards. People that literally think Coke is going to cause cancer, they don't care. They're like, we're gonna convince you at some point. Like those people, laggards for Coca-Cola, like it would have to be the last drink on earth. They'd be dying of thirst in the desert. Then they would drink it. Why would you waste any dollars over here? This is 16% of the population. But you're spending money to talk to these people and time to talk to these people. Versus this 13% gets your message, gets what you do, takes it, and does it for you. All the word of mouth, all the marketing. So everything you do, relentless focus on these people. You will never have enough budget to be able to go market to this whole curve. But you get enough of these people, it's the network effect. I tell 2, they tell 2, they tell 5, it grows. So I'm not going to hash this out too long. You guys did a lot of this work earlier. Who's your best client? What problem are you known for solving better than anyone else? And what can you offer different than everybody else? You guys did a lot of that work earlier today. The way I break out that sentence is like this. And the way we do it at High Beam, just for an example, is this. We help brands grow their e-commerce revenue by optimizing their digital ads so they can scale profitably without wasting money, right? It's very clear who I do it for, what we do, how we do it. All right, so how much do you think a brand is worth? What are you guys willing to pay for a styrofoam cooler today? Just throw out some numbers. Like, what would you pay for this? $5. That's right. Probably fair, maybe $1, whatever. But what if I told you it was made by Yeti?
Oh, $50.
$50, yeah. $250, right? As I drink out of a Yeti, I'm very on brand. Brand matters, right? Obviously, it's again back to the emotional side of things, right? I buy this product because what it says about me, not because of what problem it solves. Everything goes back to the emotional side of things. And we start that when you're building out your brand book, right? How your brand is going to exist in the world. And I would highly recommend getting the money together if you haven't done this yet. Like, we don't do this as an agency, but like find a branding agency that can help you really flesh this stuff out, because it is the what is the word I'm looking for? The foundation. That's right. You're my savior today. It's the foundation that you're going to build everything else on, right? It's the first impression, right? Mom always said, like, you know, dress to impress, like be careful who you hang out with, like first impressions matter. That's your brand. And so you start with this activity, which is a brand archetype activity, right? And you see some of these other things like Harley Davidson has a very specific look and feel, like that outlaw, renegade type brand. Yeti falls into the Explorer brand. Early on, the guys that founded that company were just fishermen. That was their environment. That's what they did. They loved the outdoors. They were tired of buying crappy coolers that broke on the boat all the time, and so they actually made a better cooler for fishermen who were using it for that purpose. It was then co-opted into a sort of lifestyle brand where it's now like a status symbol more than anything else. But it did start with its roots, again, back to the law of diffusion. The early adopters were fishermen who were all about the Explorer brand. So if you go look at any of their older YouTube videos especially, it's all, they're outside, they're doing things, da-da-da. It's a fun exercise to go down the rabbit hole on. Yep.
Yeah. It's the location.
Location?
Determine that price.
What do you mean?
Well, if you're at a beach, or if you're at Dick's stores, or wherever, just like a soft drink is higher at the theater versus at Walmart versus at.
Yeah, there's definite, so the question was like, is it location dependent on your pricing? For sure. There's definitely like, if I'm the only food truck on a beach and there's no food around for miles, like I can pretty much charge anything I want. The example of a stadium, charging $20 for a Budweiser is crazy, but they get away with it because of supply and demand. So there is some other, again, this whole speech is to get you to like 80% of the way there. Your specific situations, your specific nuances, you're gonna have to do the legwork to take it over the finish line. But if you don't know who you are on this graph, again, back to clarity, you'll be a wandering generality. The brand that everybody loves to mention recently blowing up is Liquid Death. Right? Everybody loves to talk about that brand because of all the funny stuff they do. You would think it's because they're some big rebel. All they did, they looked at this graph and they said, okay, Everyman is Dasani, Aquafina, Kroger water. It's every bottle of water that's out there and they're all just competing on price, race to the bottom. Who can get it the biggest distribution, cheapest, da-da-da. Where's it at? The Ruler brand, which is people that care about status and symbol, Voss water was created, $8, $10 bottles, very big, beautifully designed, huge things. That's not about delivering the drink. It's so that some dude in some meeting can be like, I'm better than you because I drink Voss, and like that's a very important thing to that guy. Liquid Death came out and said, this environment is stale. The guy that started that company was a marketer. He's a guy that likes to tell stories. He did it as a joke to begin with, and it went so viral and it was so popular that they actually had to turn it into a product. And they landed right here in this gesture brand where they're sort of making fun, they're having a good time, and that's what that brand's all about. The next thing you want to do when you're doing your brand book is make sure that you have a consistent look and feel, right? You don't want it to be jarring across all the things you do. I did a deep dive on everybody's website here, and I'm telling you, this is a huge thing you guys should work on Monday morning when you get back to work. Logos consistently, fonts consistently, colors consistently. My first menu I ever made for the restaurant had like 8 different fonts on it. I didn't know. And I just was like stuffing stuff in there from like a Office Depot builder. And you don't know what you don't know, but you got to get there. So the big thing here is you want to get your logos designed well. You want a font suite that matches what you're doing. I would highly recommend having a professional help you out with this. Like you can get it done for a couple $1,000s, and it's worth the investment. And it'll get you set up for the next 5 years. Moving on to the next section of the flywheel here. Awareness. Now we've set the foundation, we're ready to go bring people into our brand, right? Because if I just, the old saying in marketing is that good marketing exposes bad products faster. And so if you weren't ready from a business standpoint or you weren't ready from a brand standpoint, like bringing attention to your business is not ready. So the thing we always start with is social media. And to understand how we got here with social media, you start with where we started. So back in the day, we had 3 TV channels. They all spent a lot of money developing shows to sell to advertisers like me. The ad breaks in the middle. Internet comes along and breaks everything. The average person is spending, like I said earlier, 2.5 hours a day across a suite of social media apps. It's not just one, so you can't just get good at Instagram. You have to also be on all of them. 2.5 hours a day if you want to get in front of your clients. In fact, 500 hours of YouTube videos are uploaded every minute. This is from a couple years ago, so it's even more now. 1.7 million Facebook photos are posted every minute. 66,000 photos go up on Instagram every minute, and 347,000 tweets per minute. It is a ton of volume. There's no more like you get to run one ad to millions of people. It's like so fractionalized down and small.
This is global.
Global, yeah, 7, 8 billion people on the planet. 5 billion people are on the internet right now, I think. So this is what the TV feeds look like now. Just imagine it's a phone, you're scrolling, content, 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 ad, content, 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 ad. It's the same as it was in the 90s. New technology is not a new demon. It's all the same stuff. So you got to remember that when you're running this. So what we're going to talk about now, in this part of this, is how do I make sure my content shows up in the user-generated content section. And I have a love-hate relationship with this part of the talk because everybody wants to talk about social media because it's the thing that's free and just costs you your time. But I will tell you now, if you're doing social media and you think it's going to be the thing that sells stuff for you, you'll be very disappointed with the results. And I'm happy to talk about that more after the fact. But the best pitch you possibly can, because I know people are going to ask, here's
The last statement.
yeah, so if you expect social media to drive a lot of revenue for your business, you're going to be disappointed. And the reason why is because that mismatches to the platform's purpose for being. The platform's purpose is to keep people on the feed so that they can sell these ads. And if you're running content that's like, even if you did the best Instagram reel of all time and it got hundreds of clicks for you back to your website, which would be awesome for most of our social media followings in this room, the algorithm's going to automatically apply a limiter to that and say, well, we can't run that as an ad. But not to get too far ahead of myself, you can then take that creative that worked really well, run it as an ad, play ball with the platform, and get all the benefit that you wanted. So how do we stand out? Well, first we got to understand how these algorithms work. Back in the day, everything was a follower-based algorithm, which meant I followed everybody in this room, and so I'd see your content as it came up. The platforms realized that most of us are really bad at making content. We're very bad at being entertaining. Like, it's a hard skill to do. Like, there's influencers now that this is their full-time job, is just to get attention. And you're also running a business, and now you also have to be good at getting attention. It's going to be brutal to do. So all the algorithms started to shift towards an interest-based algorithm. So the example I always use is like, if you like dogs, like 10 dog photos and see how many dog videos you start seeing on your Instagram reel. It will be within minutes, the change. You'll see it so fast. And TikTok, honestly, took what YouTube was already doing from an interest-based standpoint and put it on crack because the speed to swipe was so fast, the dopamine loop was so tight. It ruined Facebook's business model, essentially. They have been reeling for 4 years, just the back end. They spent, side note, hundreds of millions of dollars lobbying Congress to get TikTok banned. That's how much TikTok is taking away from them on an average usage standpoint. Speaking of average usage, LinkedIn, maybe you guys are thinking about that for B2B, and there's a lot of benefit to that. But the average use time is like 12 minutes a day. Facebook, maybe half an hour, tends to skew older, what we're seeing on our demographic report. Instagram, it's kind of the middle of the curve age-wise. But again, it's about half an hour a day. It's not a ton of time. YouTube and TikTok, though, are basically new TV. YouTube is 2 hours a day for their users on average. TikTok's right around 2 hours a day for their users on average. And so these aren't dancing apps. They're not anything. These have all aged up. Everybody's on them. 100-something million Americans are on TikTok, for instance. And they're spending 2 hours a day on average. Some are way more, some are way less. But if you're telling me TikTok's not part of your organic social media strategy, I'm like, what are you, that's where all the attention is. Who are you talking to? Who are you posting for? So, with all this volume, all these things happening, how can we stand out? I can't teach you everything about social media, but I'll give you like something that'll get you in the right ballpark. Short form vertical video, starting in early 2020, became the game. Photos don't work anymore, graphics don't work anymore. Like to say they don't work is probably a little bit too extreme, but like their impact is so limited. So you have to get good at video content. Video is the thing. I'm recording this. This will be stripped into a vertical video and posted on all of our social media channels over the next couple months. So the way we do it is sort of this process here. You start with recon, which is go study your competitors, go study people that are adjacent to you, see what's working for them, what videos do well, what topics. Adjacent niches even, like if you're in the food space, like what are they doing in the home improvement space? Like what can I learn? Austin Kleon says, steal like an artist. You know, there's no new ideas under the sun. Your job is to be inspired, and that's what the recon phase is for. Collect ideas, dump them all down in a spreadsheet, and then rack and stack them by what you're most interested in making to least interested in making. Some ideas that I always like are like frequently asked questions with you and your customers, fun stories that come up in the middle of things you're doing, fun new things you're trying to try within your business as an R&D. There's a guy, I don't know who it is, I saw the website, like you sell knives. Is that person here? Yeah. So like you, for instance, there's this guy that's an influencer on social media that takes dull things and makes them sharp. And like that's his whole bit. You know what I'm talking about? The Asian guy? Yes. Millions of followers. And I have watched more of his content than I care to admit. It's embarrassing.
The stuff he does is impossible.
It's fascinating. And I don't, he get that little razor thing. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yes. So like those kind of things. Like how could you do that? Or how could you work with him? All those kind of things. Like that's part of the recon phase. Like don't try to reinvent the wheel. Go see what's working. Take 80% of it and put your own 20% unique spin on it. And then you'll be able to like start generating ideas to get to the next stage. So that's the recon phase. So every video has to start with a hook. You know, you'll notice in this presentation, I've done a lot of like re-hooking you in because like listening to me talk for an hour and a half is probably boring. My wife's been married to me for 12 years and she tells me that all the time. But you re-hook people, you know, you ask questions, you say something bold, you trigger an emotion on the front end, curiosity or joy or whatever. We were talking beforehand, like dogs do really well on social media, you know, because it's like, boom, joy, see it, stop, look. So get really good at hooks. I have an article I wrote on our website which has 50 of the best hooks that we've found through our own recon. And so I'm happy to send that to any of you guys if you'd like to see it, or you can just go to our website and click on articles and it's there. So from there, you have to have the middle of the video, which like I'm always a big fan of story. I think it's the most easy thing to do. Pretty much everything is a story anyways. It's like, you know, back to the knife sharpening example, it's like, just had this knife that I bought from a garage sale from the 40s. It's never been sharpened, made of XYZ steel. What's the journey for that knife? Well, I do this, then I do this, then I do this, and now let's do the test on the sharpening. Boom, end. That's a whole story. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. It really can't be. You're not making the next Marvel movie because you really only have 60 seconds to do it. Most of these videos average 60 seconds in length. And most of the watch time on them, like the majority of your viewers that you'll see, you get a 1 million view video, the majority of people will watch the first 10 seconds. Like it's crazy the retention curve drop off. But then after the story ends, you want to have a call to action, like push them to something, push them to watch the next video, push them to comment on the video. I did a post last night talking about Deion Sanders, and I ended the video with like, do you think Deion's a genius or do you think he's a charlatan? And it's sort of like just asking a question to see if people will take one stand or another. I'm from Georgia, I love Deion. Dirty Bird Deion was great. And the last thing is review. You got to go back and look at your data. Post for a month straight. Don't get distracted. Post, post, post. See what comes back. Look at the data after you've put out 30 days worth of content. Take what you learn, make a new strategy for the next month, rinse and repeat, and do that forever. And I do want to say right now that all of this feels like a lot, because it is a lot. It's all of the marketing plan, and I'm trying to cram it into an hour basically. But once you get this going and you get momentum, like at the barbecue restaurant, I was spending between 5 and 10 hours a week on this. You know, High Beam, it's about the same ratio. And so you can carve out while you're building your business, especially in the beginning when you don't have a ton of money to hire people to do stuff, 5 to 10 hours to get all this done once it gets going. So some of the metrics that I would recommend looking at, total views, and this is to see how your content's performing because again, if it's not going to drive traffic to your website. I had a video get 500,000 views on TikTok. My website traffic lift was 0. 0. They're not on there to learn about me and my brand necessarily. They're just there to be entertained. And my job is to show up a bunch. If I had for instance, if I had a one-on-one coffee with any of you guys for an hour, we'd build a relationship for 60 minutes. That's 60 whole minutes of us talking back and forth. I'm building awareness. I'm being emotionally relevant. All the things you need to do to like convince somebody to do business with you. Social media is 60 seconds at a time if you're lucky. Most people see it 7 seconds at a time. Again, I don't do math, but 7 seconds into 60 minutes is a lot. They have to see hundreds of your videos before they have the impact of one coffee conversation. So keep that in mind. Total shares, I'm so sorry, I got to keep moving. We'll do questions after the fact if we have a little time, if that's okay. And social media has some really cool effects. I was posting constantly, not really knowing what I was doing early on, like very early, 2-3 years into the restaurant, and all of a sudden I got a call from this producer on this show called The Prophet, and like 3 months later we were on the show. And like I'm talking about, you know, and the show ended, like I ended up getting a job with Marcus and going to work for him and all. You can watch me cry on national TV. That's fun. Just to be vulnerable with everybody here. But like, 2019, spring of 2019 we were on.
So what was the result with Marcus?
on timing wise, I'm happy to talk to anybody about everything after the fact. I don't want to get knife hand by Nick to get off the stage. My point with showing this is not to brag or anything like that, but it's the point out that like we didn't really sell a lot of barbecue from organic reach. Like I ran a ton of ads to the audience we had built, but people liked the content we were putting out, the stories we were putting out. I branded my mom as Mama Lyles. You know, there was a lot of things we were doing, sort of like just trying everything to see what worked, and all of a sudden, weird stuff like this happens. So I don't know if it can't work for everybody like that, but you might have your next $10,000 client 6 months from now that's been watching you hundreds of times, and now they're ready to buy. So the last part of awareness, or the next part of awareness, I should say, is public relations. And at this point, I'm really afraid to ask what public relations is because so much has changed in our world. But this is the list. Social media influencers is probably the biggest thing on this list. Being able to leverage other people's platforms is huge. It's essentially this halo effect where they're taking their trust and transferring it to you. If you guys saw the Firefest documentary on Netflix, this is like influencer marketing on steroids that went wrong. Basically, these sort of charlatan guys put this like really shady thing together on this island, had all these influencers paid to promote it. I think Ja Rule was involved somehow for some reason. It was insane. Guys were down there eating cheese sandwiches for $5,000 tickets and sleeping in like, you know, pop-up tents. It was nuts. But it's the power of influencer marketing. Everybody just bought in. They were like, I trust the people telling me to go do this. And then they went and did it. So my advice for making influencers work is like, it's just a volume game. You got to reach out to a ton of people to find the right relationships for people that can already have audiences that are willing to talk about your products. A lot of people in the micro influencer space will be happy to work with you just for free product as they're building their own careers and they're chasing their own dreams. So finding a way to be synergistic with them is huge. So raise a hand. How many of you guys have tried paid ads and mixed results? I always hear a lot of times like, it doesn't really work for us, da-da-da. Yeah. And I think, again, it comes down to not understanding, a lot of times it's a function of budget, it's a function of creative, like there's a lot of nuance there, and I'm happy to go deeper after the fact with this. But the whole point here now is like we're now playing ball, like we said earlier, with these platforms, and they're going to happily show our stuff to a targeted audience. But we have to determine on the front end, like what is the actual intent of the ad we're running. And so there's two major buckets we break this into. Intent-based is people that are like, I have a problem right now, and I'm looking to solve it. We were talking earlier about your spider bite venom stuff. It's like kind of hard because it's like when I have the bite, now I'm going to have to wait like 2 days, but there is intent there. So you probably have a chance to make Amazon or Google ads, which is all in the intent-based space, Bing, Google, Amazon. Or demand-based, which is like, I don't really know what you're doing yet, but you're educating me on the spider bite ointment stuff to treat. And then when I'm ready to buy it as a preparatory tool, then I buy it. Right? You're building awareness, you're building demand. Like we'll break down the ratios here in just a minute, but like that's basically on all these platforms. And the big difference here is user intent. I go to these platforms looking for specific things. Search engine is I'm looking. Demand-based is like I'm there to be on Instagram and see what everybody I follow is doing or like what I'm interested in dog-wise is happening. I'm not there to buy your product. You're interrupting me, and so you better make sure it's worth it when you do it. And then we get to the conversion part, and this is the most fun part about marketing because this is when like sales actually start to happen. And this is where you're really turning up the paid ads, you're really getting your website dialed in, and then we start introducing email marketing, right? We're starting to actually convert people. We mentioned this in the first session, but this is my graph for it. Basically, 95% of the market is not in the market for what you do at any time. 5% is. And we all want to market to these people because they have money and a problem and they want to sell it right now. Well, guess what? You're not the first person to have that idea, and you're not going to be the last. And that's where all the competition is down here. I don't know how many of you guys are looking for paid ads vendors right now. Maybe 5% of the room. That'd be interesting to see if that actually works out that way. But 95% probably aren't. And so all I'm doing standing up here is building a relationship, becoming your guy for this specific problem set so that when you fall into this bucket, you call me first. This is the attitude we've got to have about building marketing. It's like it's truly a relational thing. Like you are building a relationship with your customers, especially as small business owners where you are the face of the brand. Intent-based is that 5%. You want to maximize that out. So you or your paid ads partner, like max that out. That is like I'm spending $1, I'm getting 6 back. I'm spending $1, I'm getting 2 back. Your business model will change that. Max it out. But then don't be afraid to start investing money in this demand gen space. And that's harder to do because you then transition to awareness ads, where you have to get comfortable with attention and delayed influence. right? Where you're building attention, you're building awareness for your brand, building up what you do, and then when people are ready to buy, they'll come buy with you. You know, you can't convince people to do something they don't want to do. And so that's really the heart of a demand-based. I love the 80-20 ratio for this. Spend 80% of your budget trying to build awareness, running really high engaging stuff. If you had a knife video crush and do really well organically, run ads behind it to a specific audience type, build your awareness with that audience base, and then spend 20% of your budget remarketing to those people that watched that video. You know, with targeting stuff inside of Meta especially, like you can, like if you watch 50% of the video, we can show you a very specific ad. Like there's a lot of really fun things you can do once you start figuring out how this demand-based stuff works. And the volume there is way higher versus everything else. So where do we send all this traffic? And it's a website. And again, I reviewed everybody's website, and I made this mistake early on because I had a restaurant, and I don't think I had a menu on the restaurant website for 6 months, which feels dumb because that's the most visited page on any restaurant website. But you want to be clear over everything. When you go to an IKEA, God bless you, I had to do it a couple weeks ago for some furniture. Like, you don't just walk in and walk out. There's no choose your own adventure in IKEA. You are on the journey. See you on the other side, brother. But if I go to your websites now, you know, if we just start picking people at random, like there's a lot of them aren't very clear what you want me to do. Like, what do you want me to do? You have 7 seconds when somebody lands on your page, what we call above the fold, it's old school newspaper term, before they start to scroll, to capture somebody's attention and keep them engaged and keep them on the platform. Because some other notification is coming to them ASAP. Text, phone call, screaming toddler in my case, something else is coming. Your job is to capture the attention. Broad bucket to see if your website needs work or not. Can I tell what you do in 7 seconds? Can I tell who you do it for? And can I tell what my clear next step is? So just for an example, here's the High Beam website. It's very clear. You know, we grow brands, we do it for e-com companies, and I want you to schedule an audit call. Clear, boom, boom, boom. Bonus points if you collect emails on your website. I highly recommend some sort of gift. I agree with you don't discount your products ever. Back when we had the barbecue restaurant, the best thing we ever did was give us your email, we'll give you a free pulled pork sandwich. Cost of goods in a pulled pork sandwich was like $1.15 at the time, and I had like a 50% adoption rate on that, and another 50% of those people ended up becoming multi-time visit customers. So basically for $4, I acquired a lifetime value anywhere from $100 to $500, depending on if they became a catering customer or not. It's a pretty good trade on cash, but it takes time for that lifetime value to play out. So email marketing is not dead. It's one of the oldest things around. It's kind of not fun to talk about because it's been around for so long, but most people aren't doing it. You know, and so what I would recommend doing when you first set this up is set up just a basic drip campaign, maybe something like this. Email 1 is an immediate welcome email when somebody subscribes. Give them the gift, fulfill the promise you made. And then 2, 3, 4, just it's more content, more storytelling. You know, we're gonna have a storytelling workshop in the morning. Like, start implementing some of that stuff in this drip campaign. And these people are highly interested in buying stuff. That's why they just came to your site. Sell in all of these emails. Like, try to extract that value. They're probably in the 5% that's looking. Use that time to sell. So then we've got somebody to convert. They're now a customer. You know, marketing is not done. Like, most people just spend all their marketing time and thoughts around acquiring new customers. You also have to think about, how do I retain the customers that I actually have? It's 5 to 25 times more expensive to acquire a new customer versus keep an old one. And it's funny that we all focus on how do I get new customers versus like, how do I get current customers to buy more and buy more often? Which one would grow your business faster? I mean, if you believe that stat, it's obvious, the current customers. Email newsletters. You don't have to overcomplicate this. You can, but you don't have to. All I do, and all I did with the barbecue restaurant, was once a week, I'd sit down, I'd have some story from the week for the restaurant, and I would tell it in an email, write it out, and send it off to everybody. And all it did was keep me top of mind with people that have already interacted with my brand in my zone, either on my website or actually in my restaurant. We were collecting emails through the POS system. You know, the best thing that was ever invented was like, do you want us to email you a receipt? We love that technology. But once a week, send people. I remember one time I had a guy, we were in Lexington, Kentucky, so Kentucky basketball, a huge thing. And I sent an email out in the morning, was like, do you guys think Kentucky's gonna win? That was literally the whole email. You know, there was no like real big call to action. There's always a link to go to the menu or whatever, but like I wasn't really trying to sell anything. And this guy ended up coming into the restaurant like an hour later and was like, oh dude, I'm so glad I got that email. I totally forgot to get this catering stuff my wife asked for. Like, you really saved me on this. And so, like, it ended up working out selling that stuff, but it's like, again, it's just like, how do I stay marketing to the 95% that's not ready so that when they become the 5%, I'm the option they call? In the restaurant business, we called that the top 5. And you know what that is when you and your spouse are like, where do you want to eat tonight, honey? And it's always the same 5 restaurants. It's like, well, we got Chick-fil-A, Chipotle, Lyles Barbecue, hopefully, and 2 other places, right? But our job as marketing, we try to do is just be in the top 5 for the problem of you're hungry. And depending on how niche your service is in your area and some other things, like, you may have more or less competitors. Customer interviews is something that's important to put in, and it's sort of a weird thing to talk about with a room of this size business owners, because you're like, what do you mean customer interviews? I'm the one that talks to all of my customers, and like, respect. But like, I talk to a lot of business owners that haven't talked to a customer in like 6 months. Once they cross that $1 million mark, something weird happens, they get busy doing other things, and they sort of lose that. So as you scale, don't forget this. And even if you're doing customer interviews now, like, the key is to make sure they're talking more than you. And we do that by asking open-ended questions. And then we ask the question, and most importantly, like my wife likes to tell me sometimes, shut up and listen. Because they'll tell you everything. And if you can get them to let you record it so you can go back and re-listen again, because we have a hard time with brains staying focused on a topic unless they're very good at entertaining us and re-hooking us or whatever, which they're probably not because they're just a regular customer. You're going to forget stuff, and you're going to miss nuance, and going back and being able to re-listen to those things, or having AI transcribe it, or a lot of other fun tools would be incredibly invaluable. How do we avoid a stale experience? Because at some point, it's like, I've been to the restaurant a lot, like, it's sort of the same thing. I know how it works. I know what I'm going to get. It's very consistent. The science behind that is called the hedonic treadmill. You get a raise at work, and all of a sudden you feel great for 6 months or 3 months or whatever, and then you now become accustomed to your new normal, and it sort of loses its luster. And so we have to look for things like we call magic moments. Like, how can you find this magic moment? This is a regular hotel here called the Magic Castle out on the West Coast. It's a converted like apartment complex into a family hotel. It is one of the top-rated hotels in all of America for family vacations. And one of the main reasons why is this dumb, red, old-school phone. It is a popsicle hotline. Kids can go up at any point, pick up this phone, call somebody at the front desk, and somebody that I'm pretty sure is dressed up with white gloves will walk out like you are a royal family member and deliver you a grape-flavored popsicle. I will only accept grape and cherry, nothing else, right? But that's a magical moment. It's a unique thing. It's novel. It's worth talking about. And now all of a sudden, our early adopters have something they can go tell all those early majority and late majority about. They're going to be able to go and tell about your experience and share it with everybody else. There's a barbecue restaurant I went to one time, long line. They had a guy walking around the line with a deck of cards, and depending on what cards you pulled, got you a different prize right there in the moment. So they were like finding ways to create unique experiences for you to be able to share with everybody else. So ask yourself this question when you get like quiet time later, like, what normal things that I take for granted as part of the process can I like surprise and delight somebody with something? That ends up being the thing they remember the most. It's called a peak end rule. Like, you basically remember the high point of an event and the low point of an event. Like, how can you make the high point even higher? It can't be, like with online reviews and information dissemination across the country with the internet, having an above average product, even a great product, is like expected now. You have to do something more than just deliver the product or service. Finally, when we really get to this point, this is when that early majority is, or the early adopters are really starting to take your message and run it up that law of diffusion curve. It's when they start to recommend. So we do that with online reviews, testimonials, and upsells. So again, these people are afraid. They don't want to take a risk on your thing. They're going to be people that are very interested in knives that will love to be interested in what you're doing. These people, I'm going to want to see 1,000 reviews about the quality of your knife. Why should I buy your knife over a Gerber knife, over a cheap Walmart knockoff knife, or a China Amazon thing? Like, they're going to see thousands of reviews. So the more of these people that leave reviews for you, the better it gets. When I was in the restaurant business, I heard about the study Yelp did in San Francisco. How much do you think a half a star is worth to a restaurant? When they looked at the data, every half a star was a almost 20% increase in reservation bookings. Half a star. And in today's world, this was a long time ago, in today's world, if you're under 4, it's dead. Like, nobody's buying. Like, crazy people buy products that aren't rated above a 4. And honestly, 4.5 is kind of the new standard. It's sort of it's lost like unless you're getting 5s. It's kind of like in the military, we used to have the evaluations, and like all of a sudden everybody was getting firewall 5s, and it's like, well, what's a 5? Same thing though. These people don't take risk. They want somebody else to take the risk first, and they just want to have a proven experience. And so if you want your business to grow with these people, capture these people's comments and reviews. You can do that with, how to get more reviews, ask for them. Incentivize your team to ask for them. Make it easy to do. QR codes, inboxes that are shipped, reviews that happen. Like there's a lot of things you can do. Get creative with it. Like I had a guy that hauled junk for us one time, and he incentivized his employees that if they mentioned his name, the employee's name in the review, he got like a $20 bonus. And I was like, dude, you crushed. Like, I'm happy to, like, I can just leave a review and you get a tip. Great, that's sick. So there's ways to do it. Testimonial videos, this is my most popular example right now because Chick-fil-A basically just has customers come in, talk about some weird non-food related experience on a red couch in a white room, and we're all like, God, we love Chick-fil-A. Man, they're just the nicest people in the world. Selling chicken sandwiches. I don't know how they get that. Yeah, like you with the Chick-fil-A cup. But it's like, you can simple iPhone, record the video. I'm going to harass Nick later, be like, hey, Nick, say why you liked or hated me as a speaker today, so hopefully I can book more speaking gigs. Testimonial, put it on your site. You can get a nice fancy one, expensive one done, but you don't have to. A simple iPhone will get the job done for a lot of us today. And important to note, existing customers will spend 31% more than a new customer. They already trust you. They already know the experience is going to be like. They want to buy what you have to offer. And so as you release, I got one client that releases new products all the time, and that's basically how he's growing his business. He just gets customer feedback, invents something new, and sells it to them. And they all buy it. They love it. It's crazy. But how do we upsell? One of my favorite things to do, it's called the decoy effect, or like popcorn pricing, if you ever heard that. It's basically like you can have 3 options, and then you can move this middle option to the left or the right, depending on what you want to incentivize. The numbers are insane. 50-cent difference, 30% more popcorn, like 20 times the sales of this large bucket, because we all don't want to miss out on 50 cents more. And all of a sudden I went from going to the movie theater saying $3 for a small is all my roundness needs, to like, I got to get the big one. I'm not a sucker. So look to these sort of things to see how you can upsell more stuff to the people that you already work with. And the last thing I'll leave you with is this. Have you guys ever heard the saying, the greatest thing since sliced bread? So you would think the greatest thing in the world would be the easiest thing in the world to market. Well, this guy's name is Otto Rohwedder. He invented sliced bread in like 1907 and toiled and grinded and did what a lot of us do here in the room and tried to get the message out and tried to sell. He worked, little traction. 13, 14, 15 years later, in the 30s, a company called Wonder Bread comes along, says, it's kind of neat. We can stop selling whole loaves and for fractional increase in cost, deliver a more unique experience, so we'll start doing it. And then Wonder Bread added the tagline, the best thing since sliced bread. And that's where that came from. So it wasn't even the guy that invented the thing that got the idea of sliced bread, the best thing of all time to spread. And so if at any point you are in the middle of marketing your business and trying to grow this thing and compete and all the crap that comes along with this like entrepreneurial disease we all have, like you're not alone, you're not the first one to have done it. Like people in this room will be happy to help you. You're now in the DAV Patriot Bootcamp Network. Rely on these people next to you. Ask what's working for other people in the room. Call me. I'm happy to help. And I'll be around and happy to talk with anybody anytime. Thank y'all.